What I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to go ahead and kick it to Julie, and please give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Welcome to Meet the Makers. My name is Julie Smithson. I'm the co-founder of Metaverse, global co-chair of XR Women, and just 2 hours ago on the main stage, XR Women had an awards presentation where we handed out 3 awards: the Innovation Award for Deirdre Lyons, the Trailblazer Award for Athena Demos, and the Real World Impact Award to Paige Dassinger. So it was our honor to provide these awards. We have had over 120 events in a row weekly and celebrated 2.5 years, basically celebrating XR Women and learning together. We also have a space called the XR Women Museum. Feel free to jump in there and take a look at all of the inspiring women who have educated us over the past 2.5 years. And that is a WebXR link, just so you know. So my fellow co-founders, Karen Alexander, who's here in the audience, and Sophia Moshasha, she's actually working the show as well, we're part of a team that became a family. And together we have produced over 28 impactful events with our creator, Ben Erwin, that continue to be a catalyst for the industry. I personally have had the honor of hosting and co-hosting most of them. And today I'm here to share with you a new project that continues our tradition of shining a light on all the good work that's happening in our industry and community. Meet the Makers. But first, a quick look back at our story. One day, I was hanging out on the moon, as one does, in VR, and in February 2020, I was at the Educators in VR Education Summit, where my husband and partner, Alan Smithson, and I had just given a talk on the moon in Engage, and this guy named Ben walked up in a spacesuit on the lunar surface and complimented me on my talk, and I had just given a talk in Humanics. So he invited me, I invited him into a podcast that I did, and we talked about the future of learning, and we became fast friends. When the pandemic hit, Terry Schussler from Deutsche Telekom, Ben and myself, we set out a team to basically produce a resource guide called XR Collaboration. Fast forward to that fall, Sophia and Ben Erwin, along with Richard Ward, and Richard Ward and Chris Madsen from Engage produced the very first VR charity sports event, Ready Player Golf. And for the past 3 years, raising money for Doctors Without Borders, XRSI, and the Children's Cancer Research Fund. This is how Ben and Sophia forged their relationship and friendship. And it was around then when Karen joined the XR collaboration team. So the 4 of us have been doing a lot together ever since. We brought you the WebXR Summits, developer, design, education, brand, production, and business, which featured over 248 different speakers from 220 companies in 128 sessions, over 54 hours in 6 9-hour days. A lot of content. And the benefit around that was that we all learned at the same time together, right? We weren't just making this for other people, we were also benefiting ourselves and learning about all the things that we did together. Each of those WebXR Summits also had a town hall meeting where we met with the community and we heard them and heard their challenges, heard their inspirations, and that's where we built out the WebXR community. Next came the Metatraversal Initiative, chaired by Evo Heyning, and that held 3 Zoom calls convening industry leaders to make statements in support of interoperability. Using portals as a point of consensus, we followed that up with a 2-hour streaming show. Then at last year's AWE, if you did miss it, we did a play. I've never been part of a play before like this, but it was called A Day in the Life, starring Sophia, leading a cast of 17 of us in a 3-act play about interoperability. And since then, we've actually had 2 portal crawls in the virtual spaces as we got groups of people together to hop between platforms to try and learn about what it would take to go from platform to platform. And this Metaversal series is credited as being instrumental in the founding of the Metaverse Standards Forum, bringing stakeholders together and advocating for cooperation.
Can I roll this video?
Yes, please.
So is there any person that's not Tim Sweeney, group of people or institution that you want to give a shout out to today?
Actually, I'm glad you asked. I have a couple people. I don't want to belabor it, but we've already mentioned the Kronos team who've been doing a lot of work. I want to give a shout out to the Metaversal community. And as we were very early in figuring, is people going to be interested in this kind of forum? They were so much energy, so supportive, and a lot of networking that was instrumental to setting up the forum. So I want to give a shout out to Ben and Evo and all those guys. You helped this all come together, and we do appreciate it.
And yesterday, Terry Schuessler, Evo, and Ben presented an update of portal interoperability at the Metaverse Standards Forum session here at AWE. And of course, we also produced the Polys, the Poly Awards. Starting in 2021, in 3 annual shows, we've given out 39 awards to honor the pioneers of the immersive web. This year's show continued our tradition of doing cool and fun XR stunts in public, including being the very first awards show to broadcast live from both an LED stage and a volumetric capture stage. We held a heartfelt funeral for the late great Altspace, eulogized by Athena Demos. And we presented our virtual trophy to the winners in holographic displays. Our first award was presented in person by Looking Glass's Sean Frayne to Patrick Cozy for Lifetime Achievement, honoring his work in developing the GLTF specification. On March 3rd, 2024, Sophia and I will be back, along with our team, to host the 4th annual Poly Awards with more surprises. And if you'd like to become a sponsor of the 4th Polys, please reach out to Lauren Mulder. I think she might be here in the audience, holding her arm up. The WebXR Summit's format served its purpose in 2021 and 2022, where we brought you the what and the how of the metaverse. And now it's time to focus on the who of the metaverse. And to do this, our new show is a series of interviews with some of the top talent in the field right now to get both personal and technical view of their work. Today with this panel, we're launching the pilot of Meet the Makers, featuring Artsy Marie, known for her exquisite alt-space worlds. Ben Ferns is one of the developers of Spatial Fusion, which won 2 Polys this year, and Evo Heyning, who was also honored at the Polys for her work on interoperability, is also recognized as an expert in generative AI and author of the book Prompt Craft. And I'm not sure if Evo is here, but if she is, no, I don't see her. That's okay. And finally, Meet the Makers has a story of how the team pulled off the first live award show broadcast from a volumetric capture stage, where I hosted the show from the luxury of a virtual spa as a hologram from the Poly's Red Carpet Theater, world built by Caine and Christi Fenison, who you'll hear from shortly, and then streamed from Scatter's volumetric capture stage at ZeroSpace. Cause+Christi are here along with James George and Elena Piech for today's panel. We have some highlights of Meet the Makers, pilots share with you. But before we get started, I'm pleased to introduce the man who has put his heart and soul into creating and producing all of these events, my friend, Ben Erwin.
Check. Hi, everybody.
You stand on the
Thanks
side
for
of the
being
wall.
here.
All right.
So we're here to just have a conversation for a few minutes to talk about this. How are we doing for time? We're at 15. Maybe we should cut our conversation.
I think we need to bring the makers up on stage.
Yeah, standards, interoperability, and so
He's
forth.
actually
Well, we're
gonna
going to roll a
introduce
trailer real quick. And so let's roll this.
Which one?
Out of order.
At the bottom 3 times.
Hit it.
At the bottom 3.
There we go.
The coolest part about what we were doing, we were able to direct Cinemachine cameras to fly around and move in and give a more realistic sense of 3D presence rather than just a flat video straight in front of you.
Julie.
really helped sell the effect of them being in the world itself.
I'm Julie Smithson, host of the Polly's WebXR Awards. Meet the Makers is our new show to provide you with an introspective view of who the people are doing the good work of building the metaverse.
The web is no longer something over there that we look at. The web is the thing that we're walking through and in. It's no longer a flat thing on a screen. It is the holographic experience.
It really excites people the first time they learn that they can build something in VR or AR and they do it and they see it.
I've had a love for VR since I first tried it in 2016 when I walked on to Playa and became part of the Burning Man experience. And that's when I really felt my first sense of community in VR. I had the ability to bring in other Black artists, their work, and turn it into 3D.
What does it take to create that open, level playing field where, just like the web works today, that it's an accessible space for collaboration, like a public commons, like a park?
Right-click view source taught me more than my university degree and was considerably cheaper as well.
Had gathered over 200 supporters on my Patreon, and I would give them a new template every single month. And they were able to create over 6,000 worlds in alt space.
The level of passion that exists in people who are building XR tools and building XR experiences and businesses will keep it rolling through any kind of lull that may happen because the technology isn't quite there yet.
We thought that it was absolutely groundbreaking to have an award show that involved the LED XR stage, involved volumetric capture, involved all the amazing creators that the Polly's team honored this year.
Nobody had ever done a live stream award show with volumetric video incorporated before. Being able to move the camera, I can spin it around. James is also spinning his camera around. And that's one of the ideas that we build into these experiences.
One of the dreams for us that the Polly's really was a step towards is the ability to actually be streaming the hologram, the volumetric video into an interactive environment for the audience to then choose their own perspective.
We took the existing Polly's world that we had built for AltSpace and we used it as our environment and our stage.
We created this portal effect. So right before the guest would step into the volumetric capture, thus appearing in the Unity world, we would open the portal and the portal door would whoop, raise up right next to our host.
To the best of our knowledge, this was the first ever award show to use real-time volumetric capture. If we make really fantastic experiences, we're going to make more consumers excited for the potential of this space, thus boosting its adoption and its growth. And that's really why we're all here, because we see that future, and it's our job in making sure that that future happens.
Let's hear it for the makers.
All right, that was super, super dope. Let's go ahead and meet some more of the makers. So let's bring up Austin. All right, Austin is a co-creator of Cause+Christi immersive XR design. Next up, we have Elena Piech, XR producer, ZeroSpace. Next up, we have Miss Christi Fenison, co-founder, Cause+Christi. And last but not least, James George, CEO and co-founder of Scatter.
Let's hear it for Julie Smithson. Thanks, Julie.
Yes. Let's hear it for Ben as well, man. Come on, guys. Give it up for Ben, doing some amazing things.
I couldn't be more pleased and honored to have such an amazing team of people to be working with, and I couldn't be prouder of what this crew here pulled off. And what was really magical about it was it happened in the course of a couple of days. Like literally, we were in the week, in the run-up to the show, and ZeroSpace said, hey, do you want to use the volumetric capture stage to do part of the show? And I was like, all right, well, let's see what you got. And I went in and I spoke with Corey Allen, and he showed me what they had. And I've been following Depthkit for years, and I was just blown away how the quality that they're able to do with the multi-camera setup that they have in their R&D stage, and they had a monitor in front of it so you could see what was going on. And they had a world there, but the plan was to bring, Cause+Christi had been part of the team all along since the first Polly's, And the evolution of what became the Polly's world was all there doing it. It became a museum of our work in the late great Altspace. And Altspace was going to die in a week. Like literally, it had a week to live. But because Cause+Christi built the Polly's world in Blender and Unity, and it was a Unity project, and the Unity project was the same spec that Scatter supported, that Cause+Christi and James and Corey teamed up. They brought the Polly's world in, and they brought the Scatter hologram volumetric captures live streamed in there, and then through the setup we were able to stream that live, and now it's the stuff of legend. So I'm super proud of, thank you for all you guys did. They've already been introduced, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and I have a clicker here that, so this is the Cause+Christi part of the deck here, so just click the green button to go forward, and you want to kick it off, Cause?
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Austin Caine, otherwise known as Cause in the XR spaces. I am the co-founder of Cause+Christi, immersive XR design, along with my lovely partner Christi beside me here. Yeah, just kind of go down the line. What are we doing here?
Full intros?
Yeah, the short intro, and then go through your
Oh,
deck.
okay, all right, right on. So, yeah, so, wow. We have done a lot throughout the years. We mostly worked in Altspace for a long time, and we created, 20, 30 worlds for lots of clients doing large live multi-user events. We've worked with the United Nations, we've worked with Microsoft themselves, we've worked with Hanai World, Baba Yaga's Forbidden Forest from Baobab Studios. The list goes on. I don't want to sit here and rattle it off, but let's see what do we got here? Oh, that's just me. Hi. So if you find me online, you'll see this profile picture. I use it everywhere. It's good branding. Ooh, so hey, how do you make a video play?
Click play and it should roll, I think.
Sweet. So this is gonna go. This is just me extruding our logo and rendering while I talk. So we generally like a Blender heavy pipeline. So everything we build mostly like 90% of it in Blender, and generally we'll take that out into Unity and then finish it off with some shaders and some lighting and things like that. So we highly recommend trying to get most of your process done in the initial stage, and don't rely too heavily on a game engine, because using a Blender approach like this, we can take our worlds into Unity or into Unreal or straight into WebXR without having to deal with a game engine at all. It just depends on the situation. So this allows us a really good flexibility with that. And as you can see, pretty fun and easy to use. And Blender is free, and I really encourage everyone to just get it, just download it. These are some. No. Nope.
It should.
Well, it should, but it's a live tech demo, so you guys know how it is. Well, so you can just kind of look at this. This right here is one of our worlds brought fully into Unity and into Altspace. We worked with the Act Now campaign from the United Nations to create with Celeste here in the audience and Dreamland XR, and we created. Sorry, thank you. It was a lot of fun. We created digital twins of UNESCO Heritage World sites. The main two, including are the Al Wasl Dome in Dubai, which you would have seen, and the Uluru Akatajuta National Park. Should I?
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
I'll see it. Go ahead. Sorry I didn't pick you up there in the first place.
This is a little more comfortable. This is nice. Hey, what's going on, guys? So yeah, I mean, basically, well, you would have seen a lot of our work here in Unity, but yeah, well, maybe you'll see it one day. Go ahead. Will this one play? So funny story. While we were, well, you heard the way we got introduced into working on the third polys, bringing the volumetric capture in, and during the commercial break, someone had left the camera running. And, and Christi made sure to leave the portal running so that we could all sneak over there and step out and give a little wave. It was just kind of fun. Yeah, and that's, given the time, that's about all I'm going to say for now. I'm going to pass it over to Christi and let her finish it off.
So you got the podium mic. Oh yeah, of course.
Hey everyone, I'm Christi, the other half of Cause+Christi, immersive XR design. And in addition to creating these immersive experiences for social VR events, I'm also at UNC School of Medicine IT, where I lead XR development for curriculum and training. And so a lot of what I do in my day job at UNC is create training simulations to help engage our next generation of healthcare providers with understanding things like the patient perspective and being able to connect and communicate with patients more effectively, which drastically improves that patient care experience. And that's how I started getting into virtual reality. It was through that training simulation route, as well as like visualizing sustainable sites and that sort of thing. And then I ended up in a little place we all have in our hearts called AltSpace. Yeah. And discovered the world of social VR and suddenly realized that XR can be used not just for training and helping. At the end of the day, our goal as makers is driven by a purpose. And my purpose was societal good, social impact. And I, through getting into AltSpace, realized that we weren't just using XR to train and to have these immersive documentaries, but also to actually foster community directly, to get people together from across the world in these shared experiences. So these are just some clips from our time in AltSpace. One of these days, we're gonna bring them into a new platform. And that right there like gets at the heart of like, we form these communities in these different platforms, but when a platform closes down, what happens? We all get dispersed. We have to find new homes. We have to essentially have these neighborhoods that come together, and ideally, maybe we'll exist in multiple different platforms as this larger vision of a community that we can just, I'm coming over to your neighborhood, we're gonna be in this platform tonight, but then we're gonna hop over to this other neighborhood, and be able to just cross between these platforms and not just be stuck in one isolated like bubble, walled garden. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass this on to Elena.
Christi Fenison, everybody. Elena Piech from ZeroSpace. There you
I
go.
think I just need this, right? Hey all. Cool. So I work at ZeroSpace. We're an XR studio, metaverse lab, and event space based in Brooklyn, New York. So super quickly, what is ZeroSpace? So we have a virtual production stage, the same type of tech that Disney uses to shoot The Mandalorian. No, we did not shoot The Mandalorian, but we have the tech on site. We have a Vicon motion capture stage. Vicon is the same stuff that AAA games and Hollywood movies are using. So you suit somebody up, you take that data, you apply it onto an avatar. We have a photogrammetry studio. We've partnered with Scatter. We have their R&D stage at our space. And then we also have a 50,000 square foot warehouse that we do events, concerts, marketing activations, etc. So we do a lot of different things. And my job as a producer is to make sure that all the trains run on time and that we're getting things done on well, on scope, on budget, etc. But something that I'm really passionate about, same thing that Christi's saying, is community. And so although we work a lot on different client projects, I try to see how can we find ways to make our studio more accessible. And I love doing different community events and meetups at the space. But the one thing to keep in mind is if we're doing these community events and there's not necessarily budget or anything involved, you're most likely going to get me and a skeleton crew. So for the Polys, it really was Ben leading the entire Poly team to organize and make sure that the show ran well. And for it being the first time that it was ever in person, because previously the previous two had been remote, so first time in person, having in-person attendees and acceptees, using AltSpace at the time where we were streaming that environment, using volumetric capture from Depthkit, using the LED stage. We definitely had a lot of different systems running, and it was definitely a big learning experience, but at the end of the day, we produced something that we find to be first of its kind, groundbreaking, and hopefully even bigger for next year. So just so you all can kind of see the space that we're working in, this is ZeroSpace. And if you're ever in Brooklyn, send me a message. I'm happy to show off the space. But Studio A is our real-time 3D content creation studio. And this is the layout that we did for ZeroSpace's Studio A. So we had a section for our live audience to sit. We had the Depthkit stage where we were running the volumetric capture. And then that image on the left is what our XR stage looked like at the time. Something fun to point out is since we hosted the Polys about a month and a half ago, we took down that stage and we built out an even bigger LED stage. So yeah. So 68 feet long, curved stage. Instead of having a floor, now we have a sky panel. So that's fun. And talking about all the logistics, this is all the different systems that we need to think about when we're running the show. And something fun to point out is this image was made before we decided to get Scatter involved. And so now you have to add another layer. And so we were streaming the award show onto YouTube, and then it might go onto Altspace, or even we also stream part of the show into Nowhere too, which is a Metaverse platform. So we just decided to say, let's check all the boxes and do everything, which was really fun, because I think when we're looking at all of these different mediums, I know it can be easy to say, oh, I just want to stick to just this platform. But ultimately, as we build into the future of spatial computing, we're going to try to see how can all of these different platforms be integrated and communicate together. And just logistics, because I'm a producer and that's what we want to talk about, is just looking at the award show itself. This was put together by Jenna Lambert, who was the director of this year's Polys, and just coordinating, okay, what platform are we using? How are we getting the audio? What video are we getting from it? Who's going to be on stage? Who's walking where, et cetera? And you can just see that time, breaking it down minute by minute for what we're going to see when we're on screen for the broadcast. I'm going to pass it over to James.
Elena Piech, everybody. Thank you, and thank you to ZeroSpace for all that they made possible for this event. And James George.
Hey everyone. So great to follow up Elena, who's become such a great partner over the past 6 months, and friend, yeah, and yeah, partner to friend. And I want to underscore this theme of community, which we're seeing throughout all the slides, and I'll speak to Scatter, our company, and our product Depthkit. I'm James, the co-founder and CEO of Scatter, and we're based out of ZeroSpace now, which is a wonderful home to do our R&D. We also can do demos there if you come by. We're part of the demo circuit, and we're even now getting into doing production services there. So we can work with Elena and team to capture content for you if that's a good way to get started with volumetric video. The mission of Scatter is to bring human likeness and authenticity into interactive 3D worlds, and we do that through volumetric video. So at its heart, our product Depthkit is a software solution. It's the most widely used solution for producing volumetric video, both in terms of number of users we've introduced to creating volumetric video content. The project is over 12 years old in its origin, as well as the award-winning and the volume of content that they've created. So in a nutshell, if you haven't picked it up, if you're not familiar with volumetric video, I know many of the audience are. We have other volumetric video creators and companies in the audience. Volumetric video is a way of capturing people best described as a hologram or a full interactive 3D moving object from every angle. And we do that using 3D cameras like the Microsoft Azure Connect and surrounding the subject in cameras. So when you were seeing those views from the inside the virtual world, the real people were actually standing inside the volumetric video capture stage for the Polys, for example. And we got our start at Scatter, actually the whole founding team are artists. So we actually began creating virtual reality storytelling content where we have a vision for something we call volumetric filmmaking. It's the ability to apply volumetric video and 3D capture to the art of storytelling, similar to how filmmaking is the art of using video or film to tell stories. So we believe that at the intersection of games and interactivity and immersive worlds, mixed with the photorealism and authenticity of film and capture, there's a whole new medium to be explored there. And we began creating experiences to excavate the potential of that medium. And that's actually how we invented our tools. We initially created the Depthkit prototype in service of creating virtual reality projects. So our first project was called Clouds that premiered at Sundance in 2014. I co-directed and won the Tribeca Storyscapes Award back then, so this is almost 10 years old now, dating myself here. And then throughout the subsequent 10 years, we've created multiple virtual reality experiences that are our own original interactive content, most significantly winning an Emmy for the 0 Days VR project that we launched the studio brand with, Scatter. And more importantly, back to the theme of community, is that we're not making that just to tell our own stories. Rather, we're trying to lead a community in a whole new way of making. So those stories that we created have given birth to a whole category of volumetric films that have been created by artists and creators all over the world, also winning awards, going to festivals, getting distribution deals, and building the budding beginning of a totally new entertainment media industry at the intersection of film and games. And now what's even more exciting, or complementarily exciting, is that we've really found a product market fit serving a much broader set of use cases, similar to Christi, what you're saying, enterprise simulation training, healthcare, industrial manufacturing, all the way through to corporate communications, and then consumer use cases in areas like sports and music, where that embodied sense of capturing someone as a hologram just is more compelling than creating traditional puppet-based models. So many of our, this slide is full of customers now. We have customers in the audience here. I won't name names, but we're very excited to now have a thriving business built upon the bedrock that was laid by this creative community. So in a nutshell, our product, the value prop is it's a self-service software tool. You can think of it similar to Adobe Creative Cloud. And we also support live streaming, which is what powered the polys, as you could see. And you can deliver the interactive content into all different platforms, from the Oculus Quest to a mobile phone. So I'll wrap it up. Thank you for listening. Thanks,
Thank
Ben.
you, James.
Thanks to all.
Cheers. All right. Blinded by the light. We're going to do maybe another 15 minutes here where we're going to pass it around, tell you a few stories about the actual event itself. That's sort of what we're here for. This was all sort of a lead up to that, so you can hear it live from them. The trailer that we showed before is actually a longer form recording, so stay tuned for that coming out. And I'm going to pass it to, I guess, since you're to my right here, have that mic. And talk a little bit about how that week that we spun up this event, the couple of days leading into it, and how we led into the collaboration with Cause+Christi.
Sure, yeah. And
Yep, switch.
Thank you, Ben. Oh, it's working. And this is unrehearsed. We didn't practice these questions, so I have no idea what we're all going to say here. And it's all kind of a sleep-deprived blur. Yeah. I have a very vivid memory of, I think, John and Elena. So John is a co-founder at ZeroSpace, and coming and kind of looking sheepishly like, hey, we've got this event. It's in like 5 days, and we kind of said that we could use Depthkit. Is that cool? And we were like, what is it? This sounds interesting. And I'm kind of also afraid. So that sort of kicked things off. We said yes before.
Well, to be fair, John, our co-founder, told me, oh yeah, I mentioned it, let's use Depthkit. And so I said, oh, we're going to use Depthkit. And I told that to Ben. And then John comes back to me and said, oh no, I was just thinking we should use Depthkit.
and so
we're using it.
So I'll throw into that story. Going back to 2019 for me, before WebXR was my passion, volumetric video was my passion. And of course, even back then, Depthkit was a very strong solution. And I wasn't really up to speed on how much it had evolved over the course of the 4 years. So when Elena suggested it to me, I had the 2019 picture in my mind of what Depthkit was all about, and I was like, okay, well, let's go see what they got. I'm sure it's better, and it was. And they had this really impressive truss system with it was 6 or 8 cameras set up on it.
6 for the polys, yeah.
And so that gave the nice true wraparound, and Corey started demonstrating how the camera fly-throughs were. And as I mentioned, Cause+Christi were already part of the project. And so I said, okay, well, let's put them in the polys world. And they were like, okay, well, let's talk about it. And then Cause, you want to pick it up from there?
Yeah, so originally we were just going to work on the video backgrounds for the live stage. And they come to us, 3 days before the event? Hey, we have this brand new technology you've probably never heard of. Do you want to integrate it? Sure, let's do it. So yeah, we kind of jumped on it. It was a lot of fun. James and Corey were super helpful. I mean, you guys just got in there right there with us. helped us out. You know, we are very comfortable in the Unity side of things. They had their Depthkit plugin that worked with Unity, so it was a nice little synergy that happened. And then, you know, we worked with you guys for the VFX and everything to make sure everything really solidly worked. And then we fervently wrote some scripts to be able to control all of the camera movements in the portal at the last minute there. And then Christi was actually running it.
Yeah, essentially, we really quickly figured out all of these different spots within the world that we could place our speakers, because we didn't want them to just all happen in one spot. Like, you really want the effect that you're in a spatial environment and they are being spatially present in this environment. So that was the first task, was identifying those locations. And then once we did, we essentially pre-set up where the stream would come into Unity. And then also went ahead and created using Cinemachine, some camera tracks to really have that moving camera so that we could show off.
We'd also never used Cinemachine at the time either,
so we just
so we had
learned
to
it
learn
really
that
quick.
as well.
And then in addition to that, in addition to the camera movements, we also set up this portal, which you saw in the video, as one of our hosts would introduce the next guest to come into the volumetric capture stage, thus in the spatial world. We just hit a button. We had to listen really hard the whole time to actually time it. And then the portal would open and our guests would step into the spatial environment. And so there was some tweaking. Ahead of time, we lined up where the portal would come up so that it was right there at the edge of the capture. So it really was that seamless, like they're appearing out of the portal and into the world. And that was a ton of fun. It was a really quick crash course that we did, but we enjoyed it so much. That at the end of the day, that's the passion, is like continually pushing the edge of like what you can do, what you can pull off, and having fun while you're doing it.
So Elena, you want to bring the ZeroSpace angle into like how this all went down?
Well, unrelated to that, I think one thing I do want to add is when you are looking at the volumetric capture from the Depthkit stage, that's all real-time streaming. And James, feel free to chime in here, but in theory, if you were doing something that was more for production level, then you would go ahead and do additional post on that capture.
Thanks. Just a little bit more on that. So the quality that can be achieved with Depthkit is higher if you're doing a kind of pre-rendered process or have time to post-process those assets. And it's very similar to normal video, like you can, color grade and those kind of things, equivalent type of processes. When you're doing live streaming, it's a little more raw. And I think it's nice to see that there's an acceptance of that, and yet it still has to reach a certain quality barrier to be acceptable. So faces need to be clear, recovering hands and fingers, and not having holes in the body, et cetera. So those are kind of the table stakes for volumetric video. I wish we would have played more with the style. In fact, we did a follow-up collaboration, like right on the tail of this, where you saw Corey dissolving into particles. That was also Cause+Christi built that world. And so there's just so much further you can push this stuff. I still feel like we're barely scratching. This was such a great touch. You guys had so much fun with the hot tub. That was bananas. Like, where did that even come from?
Well, in the Polys world in Altspace, that hot tub has always been there. And we always kept a copy of our avatars just kind of lounging so you could come and hang out with us if you want. But how could you not? How could we not put them in there? Come on. It was one of the last shots, I think. Just a little fun at the end, just kind of like an outro, but it was a good time.
No, actually, she introduced a whole category from in there. But
don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about.
We're here to tell stories, and so like a couple of little subtle things there. So what you see there is the cauldron of logos. So you see a Power Simple logo and a
Christi's invention.
Metaverse logo and a Depthkit logo flying out, a Wolvik logo flying up into the ethers there, Double I Studio. And by the way, I didn't mention, but Kira Benzing produced the most awesome, beautiful touch. We presented Britton Heller with the Ombuds Person of the Year award. And, we could have just not had an amazing art piece, but her piece elevated the whole entire show by she shot this. I mean, she and her team spent weeks working on this incredible visual with a live dancer and two live dancers who came on, and they did this amazing thing in front of the LED stage, and there's the highlight that you saw there where it's like flying over their head was just gorgeous. And so, and the hot tub, of course, the origin story of that, at the first Polys, I was off producing the show. Steve Lewis is here, and by the way, I want to thank Steve Lewis for everything he did in 2021 to bring us the meta multiverse.
100%.
I was off doing my thing while the show was on. There was an Altspace watch party, and so I found out afterwards that Cause, merrymaker as he is, turned one of the Polys into a hot tub, and then after the event, I was like, why don't you just like install that into the world? And that was how that hot tub came to be. And now that hot tub has another life. And as they mentioned, the Altspace refugees need a new home. There will be announcements coming soon. The Polys World and the Four Mothers Cafe will be back in social VR, and you'll be able to experience those things again soon. And more. So we are, let me just check our time here. So we've got 20 minutes left, and we're going to do some Q&A, but let's just have one more closing round. And because we're here, as makers, and we want to talk about the makers, geek out a bit for us and tell us something technical about what the execution, because we're an XR conference and we're celebrating XR technology, and I don't think anybody here is disinterested in some of the technical things. So James, you want to sort of tell us some technical things about how you and Corey were able to execute this that we've been talking about?
Yes, sure. And I'll sneak in something we talked about, sort of future technical stuff. I think one thing that was really amazing about this is just some aspects of the workflow. So we were talking about getting up to speed very quickly. Cause and Christi were able to work with assets that had been shot with Depthkit previously and do all of the blocking in sleep-deprived state, last 13th hour, but still before it was live. And it was kind of testing the metal of one feature we have in Depthkit where all the underlying video system for displaying the holograms is equivalent between live streaming and captured content. And so at the moment of the show, we just switch that back end out, and then bam, the live hologram takes place exactly where the sort of blocked ones were. And that saved our butts, I think, because otherwise we wouldn't have had the live stream set up to do that prototyping, and we just couldn't have done all the amazing cinematic camera moves that you did without understanding where that figure would appear. So that's and it's not even that technical, but it's just one of these workflow things that makes things possible. And I'll use my little platform here and I'll pass it on. What we really want to do is we want to be able to live stream these interactive volumetric video holograms into interactive environments. So Polys was essentially like pixel streaming or render streaming, where we're compositing the world from a live feed in Unity and then injecting that as a feed through vMix into the YouTube stream, which was really great because you have all the controls of mixing and cutting between different feeds. But what we want to do, hopefully by this time next year, and the groundwork is being laid as we speak, to actually host something like this where folks are in social VR and they're seeing the live hologram, and that person also can see all the folks in social VR and do call outs and things like that, and we can really play with this spatial live thing, and we're actually rendering it in interactive 3D. So that's next.
We've got a 10-minute warning from the host here, so
the end.
Pass through. Elena, you want to go next?
I'm going to say something super quick, and it's actually not technical, but I think one awesome thing from this is the fact that we all got the chance to work together, and we all really like working together. And about a month or so after the Polys, we then collaborated with Cause and Christi on another project where we worked with Marcus Brownlee, who is one of the top tech YouTubers out there with 16 million subscribers. And he came to our studio for a day to shoot an episode on the future of entertainment. And so Cause and Christi worked with the Scatter team again to create a custom Star Trek-esque inspired environment where it was like you were in the holodeck and then you were transferred into this sci-fi fantasy world. And the episode should hopefully air sometime in the next few weeks.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and so that was great.
a brief on, especially on the Cinemachine cameras and that execution there, because that's really what brought the incredible value and immersed the audience in the live hosts, red carpet guests, and presenters that we had in the show.
Yeah, so we really quickly dove into Cinemachine and found out it's actually really fun to work with. The way you could visualize it, so in addition to having like different preset like camera spots, we ended up having hotkeys so we could just switch to different spots. But you can create, basically imagine train tracks, like little tracks for your camera to follow. And so after we create that, we just hit the hotkey and it goes along that track. And you set all this in essentially your brain for Cinemachine. And you can have transitions in between, so you could be partially going through a track and then decide you want to transition to a different track. And it handles that blending. But in addition to that, you can set not only following the track, but you can set what the camera is focused on. And so just really quickly figuring out all these tricks really helped us give you that adventure through the 3D space live during the show. And because we had set it up so that we could switch between those tracks, we could adapt. Like if we needed to go back to a different spot, we always could, because we didn't have it like all just on a one track line. We were able to like actually switch between. And part of what we wanted to do was not only show off, the space, show off that they're volumetric, but give you that adventure. So you start out on the red carpet, like the landing pad. Usually for people who had come into the world in VR, they start off up on this landing pad up here, looking down on everything, but you're at that red carpet entrance. But then through the show, following the camera, you fly through to all these different little spaces that people who, our community who came into VR over the years, recognized that they would gather around the cauldron of logos or the hot tub or inside of the theater around the conjunction machine. So during the live show, you were able to kind of take that adventure that a lot of us were quite familiar with. And if you hadn't been on that adventure before, you could get a sneak peek of it.
If you don't mind, Austin, I'm going to reclaim the time for the audience and let you take the first question. So who's got a question for Cause? Somebody in the room has got to have a question for Austin Caine.
Here we go.
Steve Lewis has a question for Austin Caine.
First of all, I can't believe I missed this show. Congratulations to this team on the stage. Ben and this team have been working towards something as complex and as beautiful as what they pulled off for several years. And I just am so happy to be in the room and be able to enjoy this and get some excellent footage from it. But two questions. One, do you have a recipe that's repeatable right now? And is it possible to take this to other cities? And can we talk a little bit about what some enterprise use cases might look like here? In my mind, I'm thinking of some really elaborate keynote speeches where you can do hybrid events for large corporations with a key signature A-list speaker who is in a different city. So obviously, you're also thinking about all that stuff. So let's talk. That's the type of thing that I'm thinking about, and I'd like to just get some comments on that. Great job, by the way.
Thanks, bud. Yeah, I'll speak on that for a second, but then I'm going to pass over here for the enterprise use cases. Personally, though, I've always been interested in volumetric. I've been incredibly excited to work with these guys because we have tried to do different volumetric things, and it's just not quite worked. And so finally, we had this sort of serendipitous moment. We got to try this out, and it's everything I ever dreamed, to be honest. It is an amazing technology. I love it. And for me personally, coming from a sort of a nightclub music background, not so much DJs, but actual live bands, what I would love to do is record a band, each individually, like you do in a studio, and then marry them together into a world individually so that you can almost go into the music video with the band playing around you at the same time. It can work for speakers, it can work for DJs, but I think the idea of taking multiple volumetric captures that all sync up and then using spatial audio and putting them into a space and then animating the world to the song as well could create entirely new levels of entertainment that, so I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, I'll just answer the second part. Thanks for the tip, and also loved working with you. You guys knew how to make it sing. But in terms of deploying this, like the beauty of how we've built Depthkit, it's meant to be a product that is off the shelf hardware, self-service software. So we already have stages all over the world. And so you could work with one of our customers if they're geographically convenient. Stages are also portable. We can set it up in a number of hours on a plane, get some local equipment, bring the key components over in a flight case. So very much yes. I think the complexity actually comes down to the event production. That's the harder part to repeat. All of the tech pipes, as long as you have that set up, are pretty known quantities at this point. So let's talk if you have any customers in mind.
And we've got one more question from the front row.
Hi, everybody. Congratulations. It's a terrific sort of test bed. And my name's Greg Panos. I worked a lot with SIGGRAPH. I put together some of the volumetric and 3D scanning, birds of feathers. James was...
I believe we've chatted online.
Yeah. And so anyway, I follow this very carefully. And it seems like this would be a great situation to take some extra time at some point and create a very detailed post-mortem and outline what worked, what the history, and then what's needed for the future. One question I have about the tech for James is the Azure Connects have these multiple microphone arrays in each one of those. So if you have a number of cameras in your array that surround you and they all have those microphones as well, do you utilize the microphones? Are they helpful for you to create a spatial environment as well for singers or choirs or Broadway-like production where there's multiple people singing and you could navigate as a user through the group and hear the different voices per se?
Yeah, this is a great question. The short answer is no, we don't use the Azure Connect microphone array, and maybe it's a missed opportunity. And taking it a step further, the way we approach audio, it's actually very similar to this scenario you just envisioned, where when capturing audio for volumetric video, it's actually best to get a really good mono feed off of like a lav mic that's just like a really rich audio feed, because then you do the spatialization in the engine. And that's very different than ambisonic audio recording for 360 video, let's say, where the audio and the video are kind of all baked together into that single point source experience. So on the capture side, it's not as interesting technically for audio, but it does create really important aspects of the experiential side when you apply those HRTF or other types of spatialization. So long answer to a different question, I guess, is how we do audio, but would also am very open to explorations for novel uses of audio and using the arrays of mics that we already have in the field. So let's talk more.
Are you on any panels at SIGGRAPH this year coming up?
Not yet.
Should be.
If anyone's organizing anyone. Yeah, let's talk. That would be fun. It was nice, the one we did a few years ago.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and do one more question, and then we're going to cut it short. Actually, we'll do two more because it was this gentleman right here.
Of course. It's streaming.
Based on what you're describing, well, I'm pretty loud as it is. You don't need this, but and I'm curious about your point around bands, right? So I'm working with a nonprofit for young musicians in New York, and to do that sort of stage for them in this environment would just be a next gen thing. So I'd love to know how big that stage can get. Like, could you put an entire band, record it, live stream it at the same time, and then put this incredible stage around it that these guys have built? So, a lot of questions. Sorry.
I could jump on that real quick. There is sort of a triangle polygon limit to some of this that you really want if you want higher fidelity. So it'd be better to record each of them individually and then place them in the game engine where you'd want them having the sound audio coming out of each one. It's probably the better way to do it, I think, rather than trying to get the whole band together.
We're at time, so I just wanted to throw in, we had about 30 or 40 people in the house, and plus the crew. And the crew, we pulled off the first two polys with a crew of 6 or 8 people. This poly's had about 25, 30 people in various roles and various degrees of like putting in a lot of hours. So we have a lot of people to thank, and so we'll do one more question. But while that question's being asked, I'd like to ask everybody who is involved in this live event, Lauren Mulder, Robin Mulder, Karen Alexander, Alexander, Claire Weingarten, whoever else I can't see because I can't see any.
It is very hard to see you guys.
Well, don't worry, I'm gonna introduce Sophia and but Celeste, could you do us a solid, and Rolando, could you give Celeste the camera? Could you take the photo op when this happens? And could everybody come on up? Now, our host of the last 3 polys and the next 3 polys, or at the very least, she's coming back for this, as well as Sophia Mashasha, the host here. So come on up here, and then we'll do one more question. So everybody come on up, please, while we're doing this. And who's the last? He's going to ask a question while you guys go for it.
All right. This question is for George. My name's Steve Van Loon. I do everything in volumetric video, but I do it only in the browser. Will Depthkit support the browser to do volumetric video? And how do we do that?
Yeah, short answer is yes, we do today through Ewan. Are you still back there? I saw Ewan. Maybe you left. Through Arcturus, we have an integration with Arcturus, and they can compress it for the cloud, so you can do it today. In fact, we have a new version coming out that makes the workflow way easier. And then longer term, it's on our roadmap to build our own first-party web players. Thanks for your patience. With WebGPU coming down the pipes, it's going to get only easier and better. And I agree, it's an important platform.
All right, and while they're getting set up here to do their photo op, let's go ahead and give them a round of applause, y'all, for the makers, please. That was an amazing conversation. And then give yourself a round of applause. Time is the most valuable thing we have, and you guys spent the last 55, 56 minutes with us, so, let's give yourself a round of applause.
Look at Celeste.
Okay, where's the key?
Celeste, could you move into the middle for this? Thanks.
Sorry, thank you, Celeste. We love you.
Celeste is the best.
Yay. Stay tuned. Polly's 2024.
If you have any crazy ideas you think we should try, we might not take them, but we want to hear them.
Thanks so much, everyone.
So did we get that question in, or the answer to the question?
One last question. Gregory's scanning.
Stay still, everybody stay in one spot, be like stone. This is the modern day mannequin challenge.
All right.
Can't smile for that long.
All right, thanks everybody. Everybody wait, please don't go. Rolando, please stay for one more second. Because Sophia, could you come up here and the last answer to the question, and then we got to get off the stage.
Yeah, y'all got 1 minute. I'm going to hard job stop y'all in 1 minute.
We don't know what's happening.
What's going on?
I don't know.
Give us a good plug for 2024.
Oh, 2024.
All right.
It's a mystery, but it's happening because it changes. It literally changes every year, and we want to try something new and novel and unique every year, to the point where it stresses us out. But we do it anyways because we have an awesome team that really believes in this cause and this initiative, and we're really here to advocate for the industry and specifically the interoperable web. So again, if you have any cool ideas, we'd love to hear them.
AI avatar host.
Yeah.
In addition to you two.
Oh yeah, sponsorships. Always looking for sponsors, partners, anybody that can contribute to the initiative. It's a community initiative. So thank you.
Nice.
All right.
All right. Thank you again to the makers.